All right. We are in. I'm Joe Tarosian, and this is RamView on February the 24th, 2022. It is really good to be back doing this for a second consecutive day after missing Monday and Tuesday. We did post a show yesterday, and we got a great, nice response on that. I really appreciate your likes and your encouragements and your subscriptions, as you've more and more of you have subscribed in the recent weeks and stuff. So we're grateful for that, and we just hope to continue to build this and keep this momentum going into what we hope will be podcasting and everything else. And we've already got the groundwork laid there. Actually, I'm in the process of working on some new mic mixers and different things like that. I want to make sure everything's right before we take the next step. Kind of all about establishing the routine these days and making sure we're hitting our spots and hitting our marks. All right, cool. So a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the Rams, talk about the market for OBJ, free agent targets, the NFC West, and I want to talk a little bit, very briefly at the end, about the Rams cornerback situation. But the one thing I don't want to talk about, and I don't know how you feel, I am sick to death of hearing about Aaron Rodgers. Is he going to make a decision? Is he not going to make a decision? It's almost like the whole world will stop revolving and spinning and slowly slow down to die if Aaron Rodgers doesn't get the 10-minute lead in every sports talk show. So what I noticed, that every sports talk show I listen to, that I seek information from, except for some of the specific fan-based, specifically geared towards Rams or somebody, most of them open with Aaron Rodgers, as if I care, as if we care, or as if anybody really cares that much. Maybe it should be the third item or the fourth item. They open up with Aaron Rodgers, or they open up by not talking sports at all. I'm stunned with the local radio in LA. I listen to Petros and Money, who, when they're talking sports, are great. But I listened to them for 3 consecutive days a few weeks ago, and literally the first 20 minutes of each one of their shows, they didn't talk about sports. They just messed around with Vic the Brick, and I was just, are you kidding me? But somehow, I guess if that's what makes you successful, I guess that's what you got to do. But the state of sports talk is terrible locally, and so it's really cool to see people going more and more to podcast and getting specific about the information they want. And that means I'm not going to talk about Aaron Rodgers. If he stays in Green Bay, he stays in Green Bay. If he goes, he goes. Personally, if I'm Green Bay, I want to start the new life, right? I'm ready to start the new life. I'm ready to cut ties and move on. And let's find out if Jordan Love can play. Let's find out if somebody else can come in. But I'm ready to move on. I'm ready for the rebuild that needs to take place. And speaking about, cutting ties and having people come back and everything, there's a lot of talk about OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr. And of course, we've already expressed so much about how much he meant to the Rams this year, how he kind of really blew up the narratives around his career, that he was a prima donna. He might very well be a prima donna, but the prima donna showed he could be a team player. Prima donna showed he could do the dirty work. Prima donna showed that he could squelch his ego in the name of the team, and it was neat to see him get rewarded with a Super Bowl ring and some great Super Bowl moments before that horrible AstroTurf. Uncle Stan, get rid of the AstroTurf, tore up his knee. And so I was looking at what is he projecting out at, and I think all of us were thinking, anybody in the room with the Rams or in the room of thought with the Rams, we're not in the room. You'd have to have Malibu or someplace for that, right? But they were thinking, everything's incentive laced, right? So I went to Pro Football Focus to see what his projected is, and sometimes I go to some other sites too. But today I went to PFF, and they're projecting OBJ to get a 1-year, $14 million deal with 12.5 of that guaranteed. And to me, that sounds kind of high, considering that Beckham just sustained his second ACL injury, I think, to the same knee in the matter of 4 seasons. And so that's a little high. Now, I can't see teams giving him that much money and guaranteeing 12.5 rocks. I mean, that's a lot of dough to guarantee a guy who you don't know what you're going to get. But then you start thinking about, what's the market for OBJ? I mean, the market is, he wants to come back to LA. The Rams want him. The Rams are defending Super Bowl champs. They got a quarterback who's proven he can get him the ball. And also because he's a celebrity, right? What do they say? He's got more followers on social media than money he makes, right, in a year. But where would be a place for him to go where a quarterback's already in place to get him the ball? So I just ran down the list here. Frisco, no, they're in flux. Seattle might be able to get him the ball, but Russell Wilson's going to want out of Seattle, and it's not exactly glam town for someone like OBJ. Arizona, no, they got their problems. It's a curse to be a Cardinal. If he could do it, DeAndre Hopkins would be a Ram if he could. I don't think that's the place. Dallas, I don't think so. They got a slew of receivers already there, and Dak's just okay. Washington, no, there's too much confusion. They don't have a quarterback. Philly, they got a quarterback, but that quarterback doesn't really deliver the ball, and Jalen Hurts. The Giants are in any position to bring back OBJ, and I don't think he wants to go back to the Giants. Detroit, no. The Vikings, they got Justin Jefferson, and they're not going to spend out the dough for someone like OBJ, even though I think there's some history there. Obviously, there is an LSU tie, and there is some friendship there, but is Minnesota really where OBJ wants to be? Bears, no. Saints, no. Atlanta, no. Tampa without Tom, no. Carolina, no. Tennessee, no. Houston, no. Indy's talking about dumping Carson Wentz and possibly getting Mitch Trubisky. No to Indy fans. If it's between Trubisky and Carson Wentz, keep Wentz, okay? Jacksonville, no. He could go back to New York and play for the Jets, but let's be serious. Who wants to play for the Jets? New England's not going to pay him that dough. And then there's Buffalo, which has the quarterback, which has a team contending, but as many say, it is Buffalo, and I don't think OBJ wants to go to Buffalo. Miami, Tua can't get him the ball. Baltimore, it's not glam enough, and Lamar Jackson, he's got his own issues passing the ball. Great baller, great teamer, great gamer, but he might not be able to get OBJ the ball enough. Cleveland, he's not going to go back there. Cincy, they've got their receivers. Pittsburgh doesn't have a quarterback. Denver doesn't really have a quarterback. So that leads two places. Maybe Las Vegas. Maybe. It's glitzy. It's close to SoCal. They got a quarterback. Maybe. And then the only other one that has a quarterback and is in SoCal, the Chargers. And so I don't know. I just went through all 32 NFL teams. And to me, it only seems like 3 might, and I would even take Buffalo off that list, that only 2 would be what OBJ is looking for. And what you'd hate to see in this, and it's an awful thing to say because OBJ gave a lot to the Rams, is you'd hate to see the Rams bid against themselves if there really is no market for a receiver with a second torn ACL who might not be ready till midseason. But here's the other thing you think about. I was thinking November, December for him to come back, and then he flourishes in January. But we live in an age where Achilles tendon tears, you can come back in 6 months and contribute in the same season. So, could OBJ be ready by October? Yeah, he really could be. And you could get some really good clicks out of him late in the fall. But I would give him something, but I would path that way. I would pave that road to 14 million or 12 and a half guaranteed with multiple incentives. You're back in uniform by September. You're catching your first touchdown in October. Give him every incentive in the book. I'm not saying the dude's lazy. I'm just saying that you don't want to be on the hook right now for any kind of guaranteed dough when you don't know what you're going to get when he comes back. And all that is contingent on the other one, Andrew Whitworth. Whitworth counts 16 rocks against the salary cap. I mentioned this last week. I mentioned this a couple days ago, but Big Whit is the question here, and it goes back to, do you want him to retire and use his money to re-sign a Joseph Noteboom and either Austin Corbett or a Brian Allen? Or do you want him to stay because even at 40, he shows no signs of slowing down as of yet? And then you lose 1 or 2 of those guys, Whitworth, Noteboom. I'm not sorry, Whitworth, but Noteboom, Corbett, or Allen. And so if you got an idea on that, I'd love for you to shoot me a line. Feel free to drop a comment here on RamView, or leave it on my website, or shoot me an email. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But I kind of want old Noteboom to ride off into the sun, not Noteboom, Whitworth to ride off into the sunset, because it just opens up more possibilities to prolong this run for the Rams. And sooner or later, that 40, soon to be 41-year-old body, the bill's going to come due. And that's another thing about the Rams too, is free agent period, because they're always up against it with the cap. They will have room, because right now they're listed as being over the cap, but when the cap resets and adjusts, and they have all kinds of negotiable contracts they can restructure, you lose someone like Whitworth, the Rams are going to have money, and the dead money is gone. They got less than $1 million in dead money, and that's huge. That just changes everything for them. But it's still, the Rams, the best free agents the Rams could sign are their own, right? OBJ, Von Miller, and maybe keep a couple of these other guys in the house along the offensive line. But there is someone that fascinates me, and this is strictly me, and I can be completely wrong, and I'm okay about being completely wrong. But the league's a copycat league, and you think about what Deebo Samuel did, and someone the Rams, I'm thinking, might be available to kind of try that in their own offense, because this guy is versatile. He's turning 30. He's got some NFL mileage on him, of course, but he's very versatile, and that's Cordell Patterson. Remember Cordell Patterson, first-round pick of the Vikings back in 2013? I think it was, 2013. Kick returner, receiver who never really made it, but the Bears started doing it a little bit, and then when he signed with Atlanta, he started carrying the ball. And so you got a guy that's built like a running back who can play receiver, can play running back. He's a little bit of everything, plus the biscuits and the beans, right? He rushed for 618 yards last year, 4 yards per crack, and 6 touchdowns. Caught 52 passes for 548 yards and 5 touchdowns. And he's a free agent. At the same time, I was looking up some projected market value for some of these players. PFF is suggesting that he might go to the Jets. Now, why would a guy when he's 30 years old want to go to the Jets if maybe the team that just won the Super Bowl can find a use for him? They're projecting him getting $12 million over 2 years, which is about $6 million per year, guaranteeing about $8 million. Maybe he comes for a little less than that for a chance to win a ring. He's been so versatile for so long. Kick returns, catching the ball, running the ball. No one's really known what to do with him until he was in Atlanta last year. But, the NFL is morphing more and more into, outside of the quarterback, is that they're morphing more and more into positionless skill players on offense and on defense, right? How do you label some of the stuff they were doing with Jalen Ramsey this year on defense, right? That guy's been all over the field, and it's awesome. I mean, they were running a lot of him on the edge there at linebacker, kind of, in a linebacker spot, not playing linebacker. And then you got Deebo Samuel. You got all kinds of guys that are doing different things, and it just puts more pressure on opponents. And Cordell Patterson has stuck around long enough, finally, that he may have a skill set, that versatility that the league, as it copies everybody else, may be ready to use. And wouldn't it be kind of neat if the Rams picked up a Cordell Patterson? Sony walks, right? Patterson shares the load with Darrell Henderson and Cam Akers, or Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson, but he can also rotate onto the field a little bit more and be that receiver that just puts more pressure on the defenses. And so Cordell Patterson's a guy that fascinates me, that I'd like to see the Rams take a swing at. And just remember this: every time you think the Rams are broke, they keep pulling great players in, right? So keep your eye on that one. I was looking at the NFC West in terms of free agent targets, and it's interesting because you want to see what are the opponents in the Rams division. What are they targeting? Arizona's got something thereafter. Seattle's got something thereafter. Frisco has something thereafter. I thought it was interesting that I saw a projection where Frisco's looking at Melvin Ingram on the edge, a 1-year, $8 million deal. He ended up in KC last year. He had a nice little run in KC after flaming out in Pittsburgh. Great. If they want to give him $8 million for a year, 6.5, Melvin Ingram does not scare me. Okay, as a Ram fan, Melvin Ingram does not make me nervous. So if they want to go after Melvin Ingram, knock yourself out. Seattle is interesting because they're also looking at an edge player. Everybody, right? Quarterbacks are edge, right? But Seattle, with a Pete Carroll defense, only had 39 sacks a year ago. And the best player on their edge is Carlos Dunlap, but he needs a counterpart. And one of the names that popped up for Seattle to be looking at out of from Miami, from the Dolphins, is Emmanuel Ogbah. They're projecting him being worth 3 years, $46.5 million, $30 million guaranteed. He had 10 sacks in 2020, 11 sacks last year. He was on the 2019 Chiefs team that won the Super Bowl. I don't know how much he contributed there, but he was there. And that's who somebody that they're projecting that the Seattle Seahawks would have interest in. I'm for anybody giving $30 million guaranteed if I have questions about him. Plus, Ogbah is pushing 30. And so I know it's a different world. I know players can come back 6 months from an Achilles tear, probably even sooner these days from an ACL, hopefully for OBJ. But it's really hard to move past. And I guess we are, that when a player hits 30, you don't give him any lengthy contract, and unless it's Von Miller. But that's interesting to see that Seattle, that he would project that much. I don't know if the Seahawks would want to pay that much. And then finally, Arizona, which has all kinds of issues because they got to decide what they're going to do at receiver. Christian Kirk's a free agent. We don't think they want to bring back AJ Green. But the first hit that I saw Arizona looking at was cornerback, and they're looking at former Patriot DB Stephon Gilmore. I'm not going to say they're looking at him. It's projected that he's a good fit for Arizona at 2 years, $28 million, 20 guaranteed. That's a cornerback with a lot of mileage on him. Great. I have no problem with that. Remember the Rams won a Super Bowl recently, I think a few weeks ago, where all their starting receivers were out. Their starting tight end was out. Their backup tight end was out. And the Cincinnati Bengals only had to guard Cooper Kupp. And they couldn't even triple team him to keep the ball out of his hands. And so one guy coming in Arizona, Stephon Gilmore, who's probably an upgrade from what they have in Cincy, it doesn't worry me. And I'm happy for the financial commitment because they still got an issue with Chandler Jones, who they're talking about. The one that does interest me a little bit that they're projecting for Arizona is Connor Williams of the Cowboys, big 6'5", 300-pound stud guard. And they're projecting him 3 years, $20 million. And he's a guy that interests me because, again, if there was an issue with the Rams this year, again, we don't want to overblow something. They won the Super Bowl with this offensive line. But as the playoffs wore on, we began to see that while they were very good in pass protection, that between Edwards, Corbett, and then Allen at center, there were some issues opening holes and or sustaining blocks against some of these teams. They got out there. They weren't physical enough. And so the Rams need to really address that. I don't want to see anybody go, but they need to address it. And I think the projected price to keep Austin Corbett is $8 million a year. And I think the projected price to keep Brian Allen is $5 million a year. And so Connor Williams at 3 years, $20 million, a $12 million guaranteed aspect to it. He ranks out to about a little less than $7 million a year. And if they feel he could be a little more physical, maybe he'd be somebody to look at. I'm not sure. No one wants to invest too much on interior linemen unless they're Joe Thuney or Quentin Nelson or Zach Martin or something. No one wants to invest that much. And the Rams have done a good job. They won a Super Bowl, but they do need to get tougher in the interior. And so those are some free agents in the NFC West to keep an eye on and what the needs are. Arizona looking at corner and offensive line, Seattle and Frisco looking at edge. And then finally, with that said, based on the fact that Darius Williams, it's just hard to imagine at 29, Darius Williams is going to take a good guy contract and stay with the Rams. And we've talked about that. He's a free agent. He didn't have a great year, but I also think some of that had to do with scheme. There were some issues there where it just looked like he was off the ball. And last year, he was on the ball more. And so it'll be interesting to see what plays out with him. He played solid, but is he going to be worth 3 years for $39 million or 3 years for $40 million? There's talk that Minnesota would be interested in him. And there's also talk that Brandon Staley right across the locker room there in at SoFi of the Chargers would be interested in him since he played so well under Staley. So if Williams goes, then you have to start talking about who's going to replace him. I thought the Rams gave up on David Long early in the year. I thought way too soon. I didn't think he was as bad. But he came back and he played a lot of snaps at the end of the year, and he played very well, very competently. The other thing is the Rams invested a high pick in Long a couple years ago. They also invested a pick in the Robert Rochelle, who got playing time this year when he wasn't expected to get playing time. And, he's a physical talent that's got to develop. I get it. But again, with Long's performance at the end of the year, Robert Rochelle's the investment in Rochelle, it really looks like there's not going to be an issue here keeping Darius Williams or even the Rams going out and finding one. Now, that doesn't mean they won't, but I think the Rams are going to keep what they have in house. Remember, with what they have in house, they did win a Super Bowl. And the other name to think about who played very well, and after the Cardinal game in the postseason, I don't think he got on the field, was Dante Dion. Remember Dante Dion? There was a lot of talk that at one point during the year, Dion was playing so well that he was almost going to take Darius Williams' job. And then Williams stepped it up. But Dion is a very serviceable corner, and it'll be interesting to see, again, between David Long Jr., Robert Rochelle, Dante Dion, and anything else the Rams might do. I'm not going to say it's an absolute strength with Jalen Ramsey on the other side. It is, but with Long, Rochelle, and Dion, would it be an absolute strength if Darius Williams left? No. But is it a vulnerable spot? I don't think it's a weakness. I don't think it's as exploitable as the linebacker position is with Troy Reeder there, right? So that's just something to think about. And as we hit the 22-minute mark, that's kind of where we're going to leave it off today. I'm Joe Terosian, and again, thank you for watching RamView. If you liked anything you saw here, please hit like and subscribe, and share, and leave some comments. And as we build our footprint here, we are working on better equipment. So when we do go to podcast, it sounds a lot better than it does now. And we'll go from there. So RamView is we try to do it every day, weekday, Monday through Friday. Also, From the Ram Cave will be out tomorrow on joeterosian.com, and you can read that there. And so we'll have also the names that have been floated in mock drafts for you to see, to register, and keep an eye on, because I think the Rams draft is the most interesting draft because you don't have to put up with the red carpet, but you get to dig down into the nitty gritty. All right. The Magic Socks say yes. The number one fan says yes. The towel, the banner, the shirt, the hat, everything says Rams. And so thank you for clicking on, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Take care.